Hey, do you remember gaming magazines? Well, today we're going to be taking a nostalgia trip back to October in the year 2000 and having a flip through Hyper Magazine's top 50 games ever, as well as their worst 25. Let's have a look. So Hyper Magazine was one of the more prolific gaming publications that we had here in Australia during the 90s and early 2000s. I was a big Nintendo 64 fanboy, so N64 Gamer was my magazine of choice back in the day, but I certainly read a lot of Hyper as well. My local library where I grew up must have had subscriptions to some of these gaming magazines, and Hyper was one of the ones that they had on offer, so I'd borrow them out quite regularly. But yeah, this is going to be a real, I love these. I love digging into these old gaming mags because they're just such a time capsule. Like going back and seeing what was in vogue at the time and what was popular, what was coming up, what was being released. It's so cool. So we're going to have a look through this. We're going to have a bit of a flip through the magazine as a whole, and then we're going to come back and check out, according to Hyper Magazine as of October 2000, their top 50 games ever and their worst 25 games ever. Should be entertaining. Let's have a look. So we got the cover there. We've got Final Fantasy IX being the big game that they're pushing at the moment. But also what drew me to this, as well as the top 50 games of all time, was that this is their first review of Diablo 2, which is one of my favorite games ever made. So I love going back and seeing early reviews and previews for some of my favorite games just to see what the take on them was as they were being released. So I'm very excited to check that out in this one as well. We can see we're getting some Virtua Tennis. Icewind Dale is going to be reviewed. That's a big one. Kirby 64. All right, Summoner. Summoner got pushed real hard back in the day. I remember that. Let's get on into it and have a look. An ad for Vagrant Story. Never played Vagrant Story. I need to check that one out one day. My buddy Sam's a huge fan of that one. Here we go, having a look at some of the worst games ever made. We'll get to that. Contents. So we got the big reviews this time, Final Fantasy IX and Diablo 2, as well as a host of other stuff. We've got a bit of news to kick things off. This is an interesting one. Diablo 2 comes to the console. I don't think that never actually eventuated, but I didn't even know that was a thing that was being considered. It makes sense, I suppose. Diablo 1 was on the PS1. And every other release eventually came to consoles, Diablo 3 and 4. I wonder what held up Diablo 2 from never actually getting a console release. Probably the lack of loading times in that game would not have made it very console friendly back in the day. What do we got here? Sega cracking down. Oh yes, this looks like some emulation stuff. Video game violence, of course, the year 2000, right? That was everywhere back in the day. Not sure what Elmo's doing there. Perfect Dark getting a different title in Japanese release. Red and Black. Well, there you go. I didn't know that. I wonder if that actually ended up happening. Here we go, looking at some screenshots from Star Wars Starfighter. Timesplitters. Timesplitters is a big omission out of my gaming history. I've never played a Timesplitters game. I need to get on and try that because I think it would be one that I'd really like. I'll put it on the list. All right, then we've got the top 50 games of all time. We're going to skip past that to the next section, which is the top 25 Golden Age games. I wonder how much overlap's going to be on these and the top 50, but we'll have a flip through. So what's it say? The Golden Age of gaming was undoubtedly the 16-bit era of the SNES and Mega Drive. It was during this period that the PC continued to astound with some truly unique titles. This is when home console gaming really began to hit the mainstream. I've said before on this channel, I totally missed the 16-bit era of gaming. I never owned a 16-bit console. I just had an NES all the way up until the release of the Nintendo 64. So the golden age of gaming is primarily one of the reasons this channel even exists, is to go back and actually experience some of those golden age 16-bit games. Super Mario World on the SNES takes the title as their number one golden age game. I don't think they're going to get a whole lot of pushback there. Doom 2 on the PC, absolute classic. Street Fighter 2 Turbo, A Link to the Past, Warcraft 2, Super Mario Kart, Civilization, Ultima 7, Sonic the Hedgehog, Monkey Island 2, Super Bomberman 2, Alone in the Dark, Super Metroid, absolute banger Super Metroid. That's one that I have played very recently with my buddy Gary. Amazing game. X-Wing, Star Fox. Star Fox on the Super Nintendo. Man, I don't know about that. Lemmings. I loved Lemmings back in the day. That's one of my earliest PC games. It might have been actually my first PC game that I ever played, now that I think about it. It was either Lemmings or Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? One of those two, I think. On the floppy disks back in the day, right? F-Zero, absolute cracker. Flashback, Shadowrun, Revenge of Shinobi, another one that's on my list to try out. NBA Jam, Toe Jam and Earl, Earthworm Jim, Syndicate. Syndicate is a very interesting looking game. I'm actually really keen to try Syndicate one day and check it out. And SimCity 2000, another banger. Totally missed out on SimCity. I don't think I ever played a SimCity game in my life, except for the more recent ones. I think I played, what did I have back in the day on the PC? Sim Tower. Really liked Sim Tower, but never actually played SimCity, believe it or not. What have we got? Some more advertisements. We're going into previews here. Jet Set Radio, another banger that I've never tried. Dino Crisis 2. I can't wait to try Dino Crisis. That's another series that I've never come across. I've always said that I would absolutely love Resident Evil if they just replaced the zombies with dinosaurs. Imagine my surprise when I find out that that's a game that actually already exists. So I'm really, really keen to check out Dino Crisis. Advertisement for the Nokia. Check it out. Driver 2. Aiden Chronicles. There it is. Summoner. Man, Summoner just got pushed hard. I remember going into not even just game stores, but like electronics stores like Harvey Norman and the like. And they would just have posters and standees up for Summoner. This sort of like what I thought was a fairly kind of random, obscure game. Must have been a bit of advertising cross-promotion there. Cheat Zone. Tips. Oh, there we go. Cheats and tips for PlayStation and Nintendo. Nice. I've never called it a tip line. I had I was never a big sort of cheat guy, like trying to figure out cheat codes and break the games and that sort of thing. But I did have a little, do you remember like you used to get little like tip books that came with gaming magazines for free? I had one of those from N64 Gamer, a red covered one that I'd love to track down and get one day. I've actually got a really distinct memory of reading it on the toilet as a kid. We've got games that are coming up. Looks like they're going to be released next month. What have we got there? Halo. Oh, wow. Check that out. Look at that screenshot of Halo. Look at the helmet, dude. That looks like... What happened there? Yikes. Spider-Man. Red Alert 2. No way. Oh, man. Red Alert 2 is another one of my favorite games of all time. Absolutely just love it. All right, look at this Madman advertisement. Check it out. Dragon Ball Z on VHS. Bubblegum Crisis. Loved a Bubblegum Crisis back in the day. All the classics getting released on this new thing called a DVD. Apple Gaming. Man, that didn't age well, did it? What do we got here? Horizons. Oh, this is online gaming. Big Horizons. Article. Win Diablo 2 for PC. Yes, please. Oh, we got a poster. What's this for? Toka World Touring Cars. Oh, yes. Okay. And what's the one before that? Oh, Summoner. Right. A Summoner poster as well. Man, more Summoner. I'm just going hard on Summoner. Never played it. Don't know what it's like. Alright, here we go. Here's some reviews. What do we think of Final Fantasy IX? That's a huge omission from my collection. Never actually played Final Fantasy IX, but I got it for Christmas back in the day. I had 7 and 8. Really love those. But I never actually played 9. It never hit the console. Before we sort of moved on into what would have been the PS2 GameCube era then. Definitely want to try it out though. 95 out of 100 from Hyper Magazine for Final Fantasy IX. Become a bit of a cult classic, number 9. I don't know how well it was received back in the day at the time of its release, but definitely one that's become well loved now, in hindsight for sure. And here we go, Diablo 2. This 10 out of 10, 100 perfect score, Hyper, or I throw it in the bin. Ah, what a game. So good, dude. So good. 90 out of 100. Final Fantasy IX better than Diablo 2? Fuck off. You're taking the piss there. No way, dude. So good. Such a good game. Such an absolute timeless classic. Chase the Express. Never heard of it. 84 out of 100. Kirby 64. That's another one on my to play list. And never tried Kirby 64. Never really played much of any Kirby game, I think, except for the original Game Boy one at one point. And the NES. Kirby's, what was that? Kirby's Dream Land? No. What was the one on the NES? Kirby's Adventure? Kirby's Adventure. I think that was it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I played that fairly recently, actually, with my daughter, and I had a really good time with it. It was good. Real good. Probably, I think, the best looking game on the NES, for my money. 85 out of 100 for that one. Virtua Tennis, 90. Virtua Tennis? As good as Diablo 2? No. That's crazy talk, dude. Crazy talk. Fur Fighters. VIB Ribbon, or Vib Ribbon. I don't know how you pronounce that. Sounds kinky. Ground Control. Street Fighter 3. Wow. Nice. That's interesting. I wonder why that didn't get made a bigger deal of. Like, is that even on the cover? No, they make no mention of a Street Fighter 3 review. That's crazy, dude. Wow. Gorgeous game. Absolutely gorgeous game. Well, I think, for me, one of the most beautiful games ever made. In terms of, like, sprite work and animation. Street Fighter 3 is just incredible. All Street Fighter games are for visuals, I think. But Street Fighter 3 in particular knocks it out of the park with the animation. Tokka, World Touring Cars, Icewind Dale. I played Icewind Dale back in the day, and I don't think I really got on with it terribly well. One thing that did amaze me, actually, in Icewind Dale was the capes. I remember your characters could equip capes, and they like were separately, independently animated. That was like back then, you know. But anything along those sort of lines, Baldur's Gate, like all those D&D, early D&D classics that everyone loves. I'm just not much of like a party-based RPG guy. And they all got compared unfavorably to Diablo 2 back in the day. They just didn't have much of a chance with me, unfortunately, once I got my hands on that game. 87 out of 100 anyway. Quite difficult from what I hear. Icewind Dale is one of the harder games in the series. Earth 2150. And we got a few little reviews here. All-Star Tennis, Vandal Hearts, Hogs of War. What do we got here? Game Boy reviews. Tomb Raider, Tokka again, Austin Powers, 6 out of 10 for old Austin Powers. Pokemon the trading card game. I played this for the first time last year, and I think it's really, really good. It holds up really well. If you're a Pokemon TCG fan, and you haven't tried the Game Boy Color Pokemon trading card game, you need to give it a go. It's on Switch Online. Really good. I had a really good time with it. I'd like to do a full playthrough of it, actually, for the channel at some point. That's how much I enjoyed it. Alright, that looks like about all, save for some viewer mail and the worst 25 games of all time. We've got a bit of a Diablo 2 strategy guide at the back here, which is something I will definitely pour through. Taking a look at all the character classes. Ah, man, I would have killed to have this magazine as a kid. Some artwork. Incoming mail. And that looks like about it. All right, let's get to the main event, shall we? All right, let's take a look at the worst 25 games of all time to start with, according to Hyper Magazine, and then we'll get on to the top 50 ever. All right, let's start with number 25, Daikatana. Never played it. Heard of it, never played it. Command & Conquer Soul Survivor. Here's a title that manages to muddy the name of a good gaming series. This was a multiplayer game for up to 50 masochists who had to race around the map collecting crates. The crates would endow your craft with a power-up or knock you out with a booby trap. Sounds captivating, and it wasn't. I don't think I ever played that. I don't think I even knew that existed. And I love Command & Conquer, so yeah, that's completely escaped my radar. Toilet Kids on the NES. Another one that I've heard of, but never played. I didn't know it was considered one of the worst games ever made, though. Appropriately named, though, by the sounds of things. Number 22, Streets of Sim City. No way. Is this like a Sim City GTA? Part cool idea, part stretching the Sim City franchise too far. Streets of Sim City was a shocker. It worked by recreating one of your Sim City 2000 levels in 3D. That actually sounds pretty cool, right? Like that's an interesting idea, especially back in 2000. You then hop in a combat vehicle and drive around completing samey missions and shooting anything in your way, and that's about it. Ugly graphics, steep system requirements, and novelty value that wore off very fast doomed this game from the start. Do you remember like how benchmarked PC gaming was back in the day? Like there were like, it's not anything like it is now, right? Like there were like hard lines of entry. Like you must be this tall to ride the ride sort of thing. And it was so difficult and expensive and laborious to really get into PC gaming and maintain, the standard of quality that you wanted to have to enable you to play games that were being released. It was such a struggle, dude. So, like, any wonder that something like this would just require an absolute beast of a PC that would have just cost an absolute fortune back in the day. Microcosm on the Mega CD and the PC. Never heard of it. Plumbers don't wear ties. What the hell is this? An interactive adventure of still pictures and snippets of FMV that played like a porn film without any sex or nudity. Supposedly it was rated R, maybe for rank, rip-off, or rubbish. After selecting 7 outcomes, the game would be finished. You could print the whole walkthrough for a game in this blurb, but frankly it's not worth it. Okay, plumbers don't wear ties. Great, brilliant, love it. Resident Evil Survivor on the PlayStation? Wow. Smack me in the nads with a spiked bat or force me to watch reruns of Hey Dad. Oh my god, remember Hey Dad? Holy shit. That's a throwback. Just don't make me play this game again. Cruis'n USA? No! No way! One of the worst 25 games ever made. Hyper, you're out of your mind. Cruis'n USA is a classic. Arcade racing classic. Imagine steering a brick with a dog leash. This... It's not that bad. This poor excuse for a driving game was surprisingly popular at the arcades, but we liken the experience more to a painful enema. Now, if that doesn't stop you seeking this game out, nothing will. No way, dude. No way. Cruis'n USA is a classic. I will die on that hill. No, it's not the best arcade racer out there, okay? It doesn't do anything new or different or interesting, but it's just a good arcade racer. No, you're wrong. That is wrong. Independence Day on the PlayStation. Okay, didn't know there was. I mean, of course there was an Independence Day game. Of course there was. Never played it though. Never even knew it existed. The entire Wisdom Tree catalog for number 16 on the NES. The Wisdom Tree. I don't know anything about that. Panty Raider on the PC. Oh man, the late 90s, early 2000s. It was a different time. You wouldn't think that something like this would actually surface in the year 2000. More like a private joke that accidentally got released. Unfortunately, of course something like this got released in the year 2000. What are you talking about? Panty Raider. Unfortunately, Panty Raider has generated a lot of interest due to the plethora of scantily clad polygons trotting about in it. Gee, who got hit with the ugly stick? Wayne's World. I've heard that this is atrocious. Like, this is one that I've, again, never played, but I know the reputation of this one, that it's supposedly really, really bad. Number 13, Power Rangers on the Mega Drive. Ooh, really? Well, the show was cheap and tacky. Oh, come on, man. Come on. I mean, they're not wrong, but it was still good. It was still good. So it's no surprise this sucked too. If you assume that the people who watched this show were morons, then they targeted the game at the right demographic. I wonder, my buddy Scott from Streets of Scrage, massive Power Rangers fan, has played them all. I wonder what his opinion of that would be, that the Mega Drive game is in the top 25 worst games ever made as of the year 2000. Spawn on the PlayStation for number 12. Number 11, Dual Heroes. Oh, I remember Dual Heroes. You've never broken a control pad, so get yourself a copy of Dual Heroes. It won't take long. Dual Heroes was a fighting game, if I remember rightly, on the Nintendo 64. I don't think I ever played it, but even back then, I think I knew its reputation. Rise of the Robots on everything. Never heard of it. Deer Hunter on the PC! No way, dude! That's a great game! Are you kidding me? No! Oh, hyper. Wounded. Placing personal problems with shooting cute animals aside. They're not real, dude. They're not real. It's a video game. It's pretend. Deer Hunter proved itself to be one of the worst games of all time on many levels. No shot. Get out of here. Technically, it was an abomination, returning video games to a bygone era where everything was pixelated and there was no freedom of movement. It's not that type of game. It was a point and clicker. The gameplay was non-existent. Wait in one spot, try and attract badly animated deer. Okay, they were pretty badly animated. Try and shoot deer. Put dead deer in trophy. Congratulations, you're a redneck. That's so judgy. The phenomenal sales of this title in the US weren't an indication of its quality, more so confirmation that most Americans really are stupid. Man, the anti-US hate going on from Australia back in the year 2000. I remember a lot of that. No, this is a great... I've got such good memories from playing Deer Hunter back in the day with my family. I had a great time with it. Like, it probably hasn't aged very well at all, but back then in the year 2000, that was a fun game. I thought it was a fun game. We loved it. Maybe we're just rednecks. It's probably true. Number 8, Last Action Hero on the SNES. Number 7, South Park on the Nintendo 64. Oh, no, not one of the worst. I mean, it wasn't a great game, but it wasn't one of the worst 25... The 7th worst game ever made as of the year 2000? No, dude, no way that was one... No. We had a bundle of laughs playing this. Oh my god, why? Why did this game ever see the light of day? Because it was fun, and it was funny. And who decided to revolutionize the development process by not bothering with such frivolous activities as level design, enemy design, weapon design, and playtesting? What do you mean, weapon design? What are you talking about? South Park 64 had great array of weapons. Come on, dude. Did you even play it? They're part of the process for a reason. Damn you. South Park 64 is surely one of the darkest days for licensed games thus far, and that speaks volumes for how ridiculously unplayable this game was. South Park 64, with 4 players at a sleepover, was a fucking hoot, and I don't care who says otherwise. I'm not even the biggest South Park fan, but it was a lot of fun for teenage boys back in the day. Come on, dude. No shot that's the 7th worst game ever made. You're cracked. Number 6, Superman 64. Here we go. We knew this was going to show up somewhere. If you're not careful, the fog of death will suffocate poor Soups. Or is that just the cloud of stink coming from this game? Well, Marvel had some characters assassinated with Fantastic Four, so it was DC's turn with Superman. The pity is, they ruined some cool artwork from the retro cartoon. So I actually played Superman 64 for the first time a year or two ago. And yeah, it's bad. Like, there's no question at all that it's a bad game. I don't think it's as bad as its reputation sort of like portrays it to be. I didn't think so. I played it with my buddy Scott, and we had an absolute hoot playing this game. Yes, we were laughing at the game's expense, but I think it goes to show that it's more about who you play things with than what you're actually playing, right? Like, I think that's the case a lot of the time. I think that's still true now, but it certainly was true back then when you were actually sitting and bumping shoulders on the couch with your buddies. It's like, you know, you can enjoy a bad movie just because, like, there's movies that are so bad they're good because you can have a laugh at them and laugh at their expense. Superman 64 is like the Commando of gaming, right? It's like, it's a movie that's so bad that it cycles back around to being good again. Maybe that's a stretch. It's not good, but you can have a lot of fun with it in the right conditions, in the right situation. Does it belong to be in the 25 worst games ever made? Maybe. Maybe. Number 6, though? Nah, I don't think so. Skydive for the PC. Never heard of it. Virtuoso for the PC. Never heard of that one either. Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. I have heard of this one. On the PlayStation. Right, okay. It has Mortal Kombat in the title and a handy hint on how to score it. Sub-Zero. Fucking Oscar Wilde writing this. Mortal Kombat was bad to begin with, but turning it into a scrolling adventure with only one extremely limited character is simply ludicrous. Even its repetitive visuals, retarded controls, and utter absence of creativity failed to excite us. Was this a side-scrolling beat-em-up Mortal Kombat? Is that what Mythologies was? That's cool. That's a fucking cool idea. If that's what this was and they didn't pull it off on the first shot, they need to take another crack at that, because that would be awesome. Yeah, dropping the old R-bomb too, back in publication. Yeah, different time, dude. A different time. All right. Number 2, Fantastic Four on the PlayStation. Oh, they alluded to this earlier. That's called foreshadowing, folks. How could one of the best superhero teams ever be shamed so disgracefully? When you get the janitor to code the game on his coffee break, literally like one coffee break. All right, I've never played it. I've got no doubts that it's awful. A lot of these like movie tie-in games, franchise tie-in games. Well, hang on, that's not even true, because Capcom did wonders with a lot of franchise, like Marvel franchise games and the like, back in the day. So no, I take that back. Maybe this is just a one-off that was truly terrible. Again, we're also talking about like fairly early 3D era here as well. People are still trying to figure things out. There was a lot of bad games that came out around that time. And here it is, number 1, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. As if Atari hadn't made a big enough faux pas with Pac-Man, a terrible 2600 home conversion from the year before. They proved once again how to turn a potential goldmine into disaster. Look, if you haven't checked out the history of E.T. On the Atari 2600, you need to go and check that out. There's a bunch of YouTube videos out there about it. Go and have a look. It's really, really fascinating. It's a really good watch. It's got a well-storied history, and I think well-deserving of one of the worst games ever made, for sure. One that I would like to try playing at some point, just to say I've done it and experienced it for myself. All right, let's get to the main event. Top 50 games of all time. Where are they at? Here we go. All right, let's start with number 50. Here we go. According to Hyper Magazine, as of October in the year 2000, these were the 50 best games in existence. Any guesses on what number one is going to be? I can think of a couple that it could be. I haven't read this yet. I haven't seen it. I've got no spoilers for myself, so I'm keen to find out what they think is the best game ever. All right, number 50, Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. Okay, yep. Number 49, Roller Coaster Tycoon. I've never played Roller Coaster Tycoon ever. Any of them in my life. I had Theme Park World back in the day. The sequel to Theme Park, like Peter Molyneux's Theme Park. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I've got no doubt that I would have adored Roller Coaster Tycoon had I had access to it back then, but I just never did. I had friends that had it, and they spoke very highly of it. They loved it. Number 48, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. Really? In the top 50 games ever? Huh. This is one I'd like to check out. I like the idea of puzzle fighters. I like the idea of Super Puzzle Fighter in particular. You know, but I've never played it. Never tried it. I'd like to check it out one day and see what it's like. Buster Groove, number 47 on the PlayStation. 46, Parappa the Rapper. Really? Parappa the Rapper? Like, I know Parappa the Rapper was a big deal sort of at the time that this magazine came out. I didn't know it was like such a big deal that it would be one of the 50 best games ever made, though. It honestly never interested me back in the day. I've never played it. I've got no real intention to play it. Maybe I should check it out, but it's just not one that I've ever really been keen to check out. Number 45, Motocross Madness 2. Number 44, Let's Smash Tennis on the Nintendo 64. Japanese exclusive by the looks of things. Number 43, Age of Empires 2. Age of Empires 2 at 43. Like, I expected to have this in here, because this would have only just been released. Like, literally in this, like the year 2000, I'm pretty sure. Fresh release. I thought it would be higher, though. I really did. Like, Age of Empires 2 was massive. Like, RTS games were at the absolute peak of their popularity at this time. And Age of Empires 2, I think, arguably was like at the you know, it wore the crown of that genre. And still does, I think. It's still a game that is super, super fun. Really, really good. Timeless design. Holds up incredibly well, which always speaks volumes when you're talking about something that's like 25 years old now. Bruce Shelley refined Age of Empires into the gloriously satisfying sequel that was AoE 2, addressing all the complaints gamers had with the first title and offering us some meaty gaming. This game is so comprehensive, put aside a few months of your life to play it. Yeah, I definitely sunk a lot of hours into AoE 2. Number 42, Free Space 2. With the advent of 3D cards. Yikes. Number 41, Power Stone on the Dreamcast. Never heard of it. Number 40, Diablo 2. Wow. So they've dumped. They've rightfully placed Diablo 2 in the top 50 games of all time in the same issue that they've done their first review of it. But then you only gave it a 90. Come on, man. Anyway, deserves to be here. Deserves to be higher than number 40. All right. NBA 2K on the Dreamcast, number 39. No way in the world that's better than Diablo 2. No way. Number 38, Baldur's Gate, the original Baldur's Gate on the PC. Bringing the world of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons alive in a grand new way was this complex RPG from Interplay. Baldur's Gate revived our interest in this type of RPG all over again, and it was soon followed up with the brilliant Planescape Torment, which also deserves a mention. Oh, so Planescape Torment's not in here. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, Baldur's Gate was incredibly popular back then. It was a hot property, especially I think Baldur's Gate 2 just kind of like catapulted it. But those two initial games, like a lot of my friends absolutely loved them. They were playing them back then. I was not big on it. Again, I was a Diablo guy, not a party-based, turn-based RPG guy so much. But got a lot of respect for them. I've got them on my shelf behind me, actually, in the collection, just because of, I think they're like landmark games in a lot of ways. Homeworld, number 37 on the PC. Never played Homeworld. Jumping Flash, number 36 for the PlayStation. Never played that one either. Number 35, Fighters Mega Mix on the Sega Saturn. Number 34, Micro Machines V3. Man, Micro Machines games were fun back then. I remember playing a couple of those in the day, and yeah, they were always a good time. Number 33, Tekken 2. There it is. I knew Tekken was going to show up in here somewhere. Button mashing paradise. If you look a little closer, you'll find that Tekken's gameplay runs very deep indeed. A vast improvement on the original with heaps of characters and an absolute wealth of new moves and combos. Tekken 2 made the list because of the ludicrous number of hours the hyperstaff has logged in this game. Oh, and because it had Wang. Okay. I wonder if, like, was Tekken 3 out at this point in the year 2000 or not? Was that released later on? Because I know Tekken 3 is kind of like peak Tekken for a lot of people. The early Tekken games are also on my list to go back and play. I loved Tekken Tag Tournament back in the day a lot. Played a lot of it. Was rubbish at it, but loved it. I need to go back and try the original Tekkens at some point. Tekken 3 being sort of chief among those. Number 32, Crazy Taxi. Oh man, that's a classic. Good old Crazy Taxi. I remember playing Crazy Taxi at the arcade. I remember playing Crazy Taxi on the PS2 as well, actually. Number 31, Fallout. The original Fallout on the PC. I've never played a Fallout game. Ever. None of them. I think if I was going to try one, I think it would probably be one of the original sort of isometric ones. I know the more modern Fallouts are, everyone's love. They're just such massive games that I don't really have the time or patience to put the hours into. I know the early ones were massive games too, but I feel like I can get maybe a better sense of the experience by trying them out. And they're just classics, right? They're just absolute classics. I've never been much of a post-apocalyptic fan. I think that's why I never played them. I was like at the time that this magazine came out, like the year 2000, Jamie was like very much like a fantasy kind of kid. I loved my fantasy, so futuristic post-apocalyptic stuff just never really interested me. Number 30, Street Fighter Alpha 3. I loved Street Fighter Alpha 3. Beautiful game, super fun to play. Again, absolutely dog shit at it. One of the that's probably my worst fighting game I think of anything ever. Like, I'm just absolutely rubbish at Street Fighter Alpha 3, or Street Fighter in general, really, but especially the more fast pace of Alpha 3. But I love how it looks. Like, it's just such a gorgeous game. Number 29, Worms Armageddon. Oh man, yes. I didn't play a lot of Armageddon, but the original Worms and Worms 2, I sunk a lot of time into. I've got a lot of affection for Worms. I did play a little bit of Armageddon, but not a ton. Number 28, Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation. Who would have thought that an old school SNES-style 2D scrolling platformer would turn out to be such a brilliant PlayStation title? Castlevania Symphony of the Night is full of secrets, challenging platforming, and loads of style. Some people may not get it, but they're missing out on some real gaming goodness. Castlevania Symphony of the Night is on my list. I've never played it. I would love to do a full playthrough of that game. And there's not many games that I want to do like full playthroughs of, but that's one of them because it's just such a classic. It's in a genre that I really like. I love Castlevania, like everything about Castlevania, the lore, the story, like how it looks, everything about it. I think it's great. Symphony of the Night is a huge omission in my gaming history. I need to rectify that. 27, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I could never play these games. This was like speed style fighting on a whole different level. I take it back. I said Street Fighter Alpha 3 was my worst fighting game. The Marvel vs. Capcom series is probably my worst fighting game. I was atrocious at them. They look gorgeous. Like, man, Capcom's sprite work was just the best back then. Like, they were just peak sprite work. Such good stuff. 26, EverQuest on the PC. Wow, look at that. Man, 4 more years, baby. 4 more years, and everything was going to change. The only online-only title in our list, EverQuest has proved to be the best online RPG in the gaming scene. No other product of this nature has the ability to totally ruin your daily routine like EverQuest does. People call in sick, don't sleep, don't eat, and never leave their PCs for inhumanly long stints of questing. Oh, if only I could get in a time capsule, go back and say, boyo, you ain't seen nothing yet. Number 25, Quake 3 Arena. Wow, gets a showing. That's interesting. The other multiplayer-only FPS title on the scene, Quake 3, had some unrealistically huge expectations on it. In reality, it's just a super solid deathmatch experience that excels in design and visuals with incredible player physics. It's also still being modded to prolong the Quake experience into the future. Yep. I definitely did play a bit of Quake 3 Arena back in the day. Definitely liked it. Had a good time with it. Man, I wonder, like, I was probably more of an Unreal Tournament fan, I think, for my part. Like, I respected Quake 3, I enjoyed Quake 3, but I think I played Unreal Tournament first, and so everything was always going to get compared to Unreal Tournament. Speaking of, number 24, Unreal Tournament. Whilst Unreal was a visually a technical... Okay, come on, get an editor in here. Whilst Unreal was visually a technical marvel and lots of fun, the gameplay wasn't terribly innovative. Words are fun. Unreal Tournament, on the other hand, pipped id Software at the post with its team-based multiplayer gameplay. Credit goes to Epic for putting together a great game with excellent AI, plenty of options, and gameplay variations. Yeah, the AI in Unreal Tournament was so good. The way, like, the customization that you had in that game, it was, for the time, unbelievable. Really, really good. I sunk a lot of time into Unreal Tournament. That was one of my go-to LAN games for my group of friends. Like, if you were going to a LAN, when you were kicking things off, like getting things started, testing out to make sure everything connected to everything else, Unreal Tournament was like always the first game of the night. Always. This is after 5 or 6 hours of setup, mind you. Number 23, Time Crisis. Wow. Time Crisis at the arcades was memorable for its introduction of the ducking reload pedal, which sucked us that much further into the action. Yeah, like... Time Crisis was great. Like, I played most of my Time Crisis at home on the PS1, not at the arcade. I played a little bit at the arcade. But yeah, like, I can see what they're talking about. Like, the sense of immersion that you got out of it with the duck back and reload using the pedal was pretty cool. And not something that anything else really did at the time. With the Namco Gun Con, the PlayStation version was just as cool, and you won't find a better light gun game on the PlayStation. 100%. 100%. Number 22, Ridge Racer. This is another game I've got on my list to try out that I think I'd really like that I've never played. I need to take a run at Ridge Racer for sure. I love arcade races. I think Ridge Racer is going to be a good one. Number 21, Wave Race 64. No way, dude. I fucking love Wave Race. It's one of my favorite games on the Nintendo 64. I didn't think I'd see it get a mention in the top 50 games of all time. I grew up sort of under the understanding that it was this really obscure game that no one had heard of. Certainly where I lived and in my sphere of friends, I was the only one who'd heard of it. I was the only one who owned it. I seemed to be the only one who played and enjoyed it. No one gave a fuck about Wave Race where I lived. So I guess in my little bubble, the pre-internet days, I just didn't realize that Wave Race was very popular. But since then, I've come to learn that a lot of people really enjoyed Wave Race. And obviously Hyper Magazine did as well. That's so cool to see that here. What a game. A cracking game. Probably my favorite arcade racer ever, I think. Number 20, Thief on the PC. Never played Thief, never tried it. I'm not much of a stealth guy. Don't really love stealth action games. I'm more of a run and gun kind of dude, but I think like Thief had a huge following even back then. A lot of my friends played and loved Thief, so it's another one that I probably need to check out at some point. All right, moving on. Number 19, Tomb Raider on the PlayStation. Another one I have to try out at some point that I missed out on. Number 18, Gran Turismo. Another one on my list that I haven't played that I want to try out. Number 17, System Shock 2. Another one that I need to try out. Number 16, Half-Life. Wow, I thought Half-Life might get a higher look in. In fact, I thought Half-Life might be number 1 in the year 2000. I thought that might be take the top spot. So that's interesting to see that down here at 16. This is a game I only played very recently, actually, last year with my buddy Dom, who's a big Half-Life fan. He found out I'd never played Half-Life, and so he sat in and introduced me to it, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Really, really good game. I can see now, like I didn't have much interest in it back then, but retrospectively, I can see why it was such a genre-defining game. And I think I'm actually glad that I played it now as an adult. Excuse me. Because I don't think teenage Jamie would have appreciated it as much as I do, as much as adult Jamie does. Back then, I would have just compared it to like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, like the more run and gun kind of stuff. And that slower narrative-driven, sort of like spooky, creepy, atmospheric shooter, I don't think would have stuck with me, which is probably why I never gave it a shot back then, right? It just didn't look like something that was for me. But now, I think it's awesome. Really liked it. Number 15, Tony Hawk's Skateboarding. Right, so going from a game that I really enjoyed to a series that I don't enjoy at all, I don't get the appeal of Tony Hawk's. I mean, maybe obviously that's just me, because it's a massively popular game. Hugely popular game. Hugely popular series, especially back then on the PlayStation. Like, Tony Hawk's was one of like the console's defining entries, really. One of its defining titles. I just never got much joy out of zipping around an arena doing tricks for points. Like, that just never compelled me. It's the same reason I didn't really think much of 1080 snowboarding either, for the same reason. Number 14, Perfect Dark. There she is. After GoldenEye, the pressure was on for Rare to deliver something better. Incredibly, they seem to have done just that with Perfect Dark. Don't tell me GoldenEye is not getting a look in here. That's crazy. No. There's no way there's not going to be GoldenEye showing up here somewhere. We'll see in the long term if the multiplayer stands up as well as GoldenEye. It did. It really did. Like, Perfect Dark killed GoldenEye dead for me. Like, when I got Perfect Dark, my GoldenEye cartridge never touched my console ever again. That's how much it just murdered the multiplayer for me. Like, the addition of like bots, of all those customizable weapon sets, like the plethora of toys that you got to play with, it was like multiplayer king, at least for me in my house. Not to take anything away from GoldenEye, because I fucking love GoldenEye as well. And I probably, in terms of like ranking them, I probably rank GoldenEye higher for the nostalgia value. But in terms of like objectively a game, I think objectively Perfect Dark's the better game. But certainly Perfect Dark was worth buying for the plethora of options and amazing single-player game alone. The best N64 purchase to date. Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case, for sure. No question. Colin McRae Rally on the PlayStation. Yes, another one that's missing from my repertoire that I need to check out. No way! Number 12, Ocarina of Time. That's another one I thought for sure would be in the running for the number 1 spot. Number 12! That's crazy, dude. That's wild to me that that's down here at 12. I thought that'd be like in top 3 for sure. The Legend of Zelda by Shigeru Miyamoto on the NES started it all. Zelda on the SNES was amazing, and Zelda on the Game Boy was brilliant too, but when it comes to the current consoles, this is the only game to represent the series, besides the upcoming Majora's Mask. Oh, that's right, Majora's Mask wasn't even out yet in the year 2000. Again, Nintendo managed to overcome 3D third-person control dilemmas with some nifty ideas, and Miyamoto ensured that the classic Zelda action and puzzle solving was in full force. Wonderful escapism. It's hard to overstate just how many innovations were in Ocarina of Time that have since become just adopted norms in gaming, right? Like things like lock-on targeting didn't exist before Ocarina of Time, right? The things like contextual button inputs didn't exist before Ocarina of Time. Like third-person combat in that kind of way that we understand it now didn't really exist before Ocarina of Time. It was like open world games, like 3D open world games. And I know like it's a little bit of a stretch to call Ocarina of Time an open world game, but it was pretty much there, especially for the time, right? You just never seen anything like it. That's wild that this is at number 12. I can't wait to see what the 11 games that are better than Ocarina of Time are. That's nuts, dude. Number 11, Mario Kart 64. Okay, I'll give that one a pass. I fucking love Mario Kart 64. It's one of my favorite games ever. To some extent, Mario Kart 64 was a letdown after the pure gameplay of Super Mario Kart. What are you talking about? Are you crazy? No way! Super Mario Kart was janky as fuck, dude. It like gave me motion sickness. The way it would like pivot the level around your character, like rather than you moving in the level. Oh, dude. No way. It didn't seem quite fast enough. The track design was uneven and the battle mode sucked. What? The battle mode was fucking cool. The battle mode's never been better in any Mario Kart title since Nintendo 64. That's insanity to say. Absolute insanity. That said, Mario Kart 64 was mad fun in 4-player mode. The driving physics had been tweaked beautifully, and the Mario circuit tracks were still power sliding heaven. The best 4-player racer on the Nintendo 64. They are absolutely right there. Like, it is the best 4-player racer, and I don't even think it's remotely close on the console. And I think probably, at the time, full stop, in my opinion. Number 10, Deus Ex on the PC. This is another one that got pushed really hard on the advertising front. Again, I remember seeing like standees and posters and advertisements for Deus Ex everywhere at the time. Number 9, Abe's Odyssey. This is one that I've missed. Never really been interested in Abe's Odyssey, to be perfectly honest. I know a lot of people loved it at the time, though. Like, it's probably become a bit of a cult classic these days. And there hasn't been an Abe's Odyssey game for, ages, right? Like, a long, long, long time. I wonder what happened to that IP. Number 8, Resident Evil 2. Oh boy. The second installment, not better than Ocarina of Time, by the way. No. The second installment of the Resident Evil saga, and still the best version on PlayStation, Code Veronica came perilously close to pipping RE2 on the list. Resident Evil 2 took the original game, strapped a double shotty to both arms, swapped the legs with tank treads, added a rocket launcher to both shoulders, and then blew its head off. One mean mother of a game, and still a great chunk blower today. I've never played Resi 2 myself. I've never played any Resident Evil game myself because I fucking hate zombies. And the first Resident Evil game absolutely traumatized me as a young primary school child at a birthday sleepover. And so I think that's where my hatred of zombies originated, to be honest. But I plan to conquer that fear. I'd like to try and play through Resi 1 and 2 on the channel at some point in the future. That's definitely a goal of mine. Oh, here we go. Here it is. Number 7, GoldenEye 007. All right, cool. So it did show up somewhere. I'm glad to see that. GoldenEye has almost single-handedly kept the Nintendo 64 alive for the last few years. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. That's a stretch, dude. Single-handedly kept the Nintendo 64 alive. Ocarina of Time came out after GoldenEye. Perfect Dark came out after No, man, no. This is the game that made Rare a household name amongst gamers, as GoldenEye offered a robust and entertaining single-player game coupled with the best 4-player console deathmatch around. I think Rare was a household name from Donkey Kong Country, right? Like, I think people were already familiar and loved Rare. I don't think it was GoldenEye that sort of like elevated them to some sort of godlike. No, actually, I take that back. I think it was GoldenEye that elevated them to a godlike developer. I think people knew them and probably liked them from Donkey Kong Country, but GoldenEye was something else. Until Rare released Perfect Dark, GoldenEye was untouchable. We still rank it higher than Perfect Dark though, because if it wasn't for the success of GoldenEye, Joanna wouldn't exist. I don't think that's a fair way to rank something. Like, if you didn't have this, then this better game wouldn't exist. Like, so therefore this original game is better. That's a stupid fucking way to look at it, I think. But I'll make an exception in this case because it's GoldenEye. Number 6, Final Fantasy VII. I mean, I knew this was going to show up somewhere, right? Like, of course, and deservedly so. If there was one PlayStation game that changed the way gamers perceive RPGs, it was Final Fantasy VII. Hugely popular, it has been one of the most successful PlayStation games of all time, and for good reason. Square designed Final Fantasy VII with so much heart and soul, and also made the game so epic in size and structure that it's a pretty difficult title to resist. We'll never forget Cloud Strife and his quirky friends. Final Fantasy VIII didn't quite have the same charm. I think that's fair. I think that's true. I remember, like, back in the day, I actually preferred Final Fantasy VIII over 7 when I first played them. But retroactively now, Final Fantasy VII is like one of my favorite games ever, and it's mostly for that story, right? Like those characters, that story, the writing, like the entire package is so solid. Whereas Final Fantasy VIII just doesn't hold up as a whole package. It's great, I love it, I absolutely adore it, but in comparison, I think it was just like a bit of a fling, you know, for a momentary, like, all new shiny thing when it came out. But Final Fantasy VII is I think, definitely the better of the two. Is that a hot take? I don't think it's a hot take, right? Number 5, Wipeout. Wow, Wipeout at number 5. Wipeout. Better than Ocarina of Time. Are you kidding me? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure Wipeout's great. I've never played it. I want to play it. It's on my list to play. Better than Ocarina of Time? And what are we, like 7 places better than Ocarina of Time? Better than GoldenEye? I don't think so, dude. I don't think so. Number 4, Soul Calibur. I missed out on the first Soul Calibur. I played a lot of Soul Calibur 2. Had a really good time with Soul Calibur 2. Really enjoyed that on the GameCube. But yeah, never actually played the original Soul Calibur. That's something I probably need to go back and check out. On the Dreamcast, well, that would be why I never played it. Never had a Dreamcast, never knew anybody who did. Here we go. The top 3 now, games of all time. Number 3, Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation. Hideo Kojima's masterpiece, Metal Gear Solid, broke ground across the board. It was a whole new gaming experience, and the first to do the concept of an interactive movie justice. MGS won gamers over with its immersive and adult-oriented storyline, slick graphics and character design, great mix of action and stealth, superb score, and stunning production values. In what other console game are the issues of politics, psychology, philosophy, and love so integral and handled so well? Very few. Especially at this period of time. Like, you got to understand, like, games were just a simpler thing. And if you're my age, you'll know this, right? They were just so much simpler than they are today. They didn't bother, like, trying to weave politics and philosophy and that sort of shit into narratives as a broad thing. Like, it was like clicky, shooty, bang, bang, points dead. You know, that was gaming back then. And it's still the only game to this date where you can place a block of C4 on an enemy soldier's back as he's taking a whiz and blow him up at the urinal. Now that's good gaming. Look, I'm not going to argue there. Metal Gear Solid is another one that I'd like to do a full playthrough of. Like, I have never played a Metal Gear Solid game. And the original in particular is the one that I really wanted to try out because it was just such a landmark game. Now again, I wasn't a stealth fan. I'm still not a stealth fan. I don't know whether I'm going to like Metal Gear Solid, but I want to try it just because of its notoriety, right? Because it is just such a pinnacle game for so many people. It feels weird being a video game fan and having never played Metal Gear Solid. It'd be like being a video game fan and never having played Ocarina of Time, right? It's just kind of like, you gotta try it. You gotta at least try it. Number 2, Quake on the PC. Wow! Quake at number 2. Damn. And there's Doom's number 1. There's been no, like, I think Doom 2 was way back in the lower rankings, right? There's been no original Doom anywhere on the list. The GL stands for OpenGL, which was the 3D accelerated version of Quake. Whilst the original Quake was released as software only, it was still 3D, and downloading the GL patch and playing with one of the new 3D cards. There's those new 3D cards again. Those new 3D cards, guys. Gibbers everywhere. Gibbers? Jib, which one is it? Is it Gib or Jib? I don't know. Oohed and ahed at how amazing this game suddenly looked. It was probably the sole reason why thousands of gamers rushed out and got a 3D card. Okay. So I had played a little bit of Quake multiplayer only back in the day. I played a lot more Quake 2 multiplayer. I didn't dabble in Quake 1 very much at all. My dad was a big Doom fan, a big Quake fan, loved id Software and everything that they did, but it never really appealed to me at that time. I went back and played Quake for the first time last year, and before having played it, like I'm talking about the single player campaign, before I did that, I would have looked at this and gone, Quake number 2 out of the 50 best games of all time, you are off your fucking tits. There's no way in the world that could be possible. Having now played Quake, I actually don't have a lot to argue about. It is phenomenal. I was really, really impressed by how good that game is and how good that game still is. If you've never tried Quake solo, like the single player campaign, you've got to give it a go. I think it's on like Game Pass. You can get it on Steam. You can get it everywhere. It holds up and it's just a great gameplay experience. It feels good to play. It's a game you can kind of like... I loved Doom. I had a good time playing Doom when I tried it out. But Doom is much more of like a run and gunner, find your way through the maze, find the colored keys and move on sort of thing, right? Quake slows things down and gives you a little bit more to chew on. There's a little bit more environmental puzzle solving going on. There's a little bit more enemy variety. The weapon arsenal is really interesting. Everything seems to work a little bit differently, whereas in Doom, it was just kind of like point and click and things die, and it didn't really matter. It was how many clicks it took to kill something was the defining factor between like different guns. Quake, everything seems to behave a little differently. I was amazed, astounded by how good Quake is. So, number 2 best game ever made. I don't know that I would put it at number 2, but I wouldn't argue with anyone who did. And especially back then when it was like fresh out of the gate. It would have blown fucking minds when it came out. No question at all. All right, let's check out the number 1 game of all time as of October 2000 that's apparently not Ocarina of Time or GoldenEye. Here we go. Oh, of course. Number 1, Super Mario 64. All right, I should have seen that coming, to be fair. It's me, Mario! Incredibly, the first Nintendo 64 title to be released is the game that tops our mammoth list. Shigeru Miyamoto, the game designer behind Mario and Zelda, boldly attempted the world's first truly 3D platformer, and he triumphed where so many others have failed. The colourful 3D land is still loaded with innovative, there we go, puzzles and great action, despite the transition from 2D side-scroller to 3D third-person. Life, character, interaction, it's all there. Since it debuted in 1996, we've been left wondering why so few Nintendo 64 games have even come close to the quality of this great launch title. Do I agree with that? I think I do. But not because Nintendo 64 titles are inherently bad. In fact, some of the greatest games of all time were on the Nintendo 64, widely accepted as being the greatest games of all time. It's not that they were inferior in quality or by any means. It's that Super Mario 64 came out of the gate at a fucking 14 out of 10. I think that's the distinction. The degree of originality and imagination in Super Mario 64 is what puts it at the top of our next generation best ever list. Look, I think that is absolutely a fair call. Like I'm playing through Super Mario 64 right now on the channel. If you haven't caught the streams, I stream it every week. For the very first time ever. I've never played through the game in my life. I only tried it for the very first time at the end of last year, expected to hate it, and found it to be wonderful. Like really, truly amazing. And I'm loving my playthrough of it. I don't like platformers. certainly don't like 3D platformers. I've never really liked Mario games at all, ever, on any of the titles that I've tried. And so I was like so prepared to hate this game, and it won me over like almost instantly. It is an incredible game, and I'm saying that now in 2025. So having played it back in the year 1996 when it released, yeah, I can. It was unparalleled. Absolutely, there's no comparison. There's nothing else out there that was even remotely came close to being anything like it. Yeah, a well-deserved #1 game of all time, and one I don't think a lot of people are going to push back on, to be perfectly honest. I'm really genuinely just loving the journey of discovering that game for the very first time. It is incredible. If you want to come along on that journey, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell icon to get notifications to see when I go live. And you can sit in and look at my absolutely atrocious gameplay and have a few cheap laughs. But it's been absolutely wonderful, honestly, sitting there and playing that game with, you know, the gaming community who have stopped in to watch and offer hints and help out. It's so reminded me of sitting on the couch and playing games like that back in the day. We'd all kind of collectively play this single player game together. It's been a wonderful experience, honestly. I can't, it's going to be hard for a game to top that experience for me in 2025. And we've only just started. That's how much I'm enjoying it. All right, so there we go. That was a flip through Hyper Magazine's October 2000 issue, taking a look at their top 50 games ever, as well as their worst 25, along with a host of other articles and reviews. I hope you enjoyed that little walk down memory lane. I certainly did. I love having, like I said at the start, I love having a flip through these gaming magazines. I get so much of a nostalgia kick out of them, so I hope you did as well. If you enjoyed hanging out, make sure you drop down the bottom and give the video a like. Subscribe if you want to see more of this. Otherwise, my name has been Jamie Dean. I appreciate you being here, and we'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.